everyone, welcome to week 20 of the Gran Turismo weekly race guide. And as you can see in the background, we're at special stage at Route X. In fact, before we get into it, I believe this week could be a world record for the least amount of laps you have to complete across all 3 daily races. We'll see by the end if that's true or not. Maybe you can find a week where we do less than this. But let's have a look at the race details for race A first of all. So we're racing 1 lap here at Special Stage Route X. Of course we are. It's a grid start. Of course it is. And it's racing car tyres. So literally flat out off you go. You'll need traction control initially. You do not want to lose the slipstream here, as you will see in this race. Now you're in the Ford GT. Put your foot down, relax, have a cup of tea or a beer or whatever it might be as you're racing daily race A. I was drinking a cup of tea at the time on the straight. So yeah, let's jump to race 10 and let's have a look what actually happened here. Here we are then at the start. As you can see, grid start. Thick boy in terms of the grids because it's literally 3 years wide. So you can go like 8 wide, 9 wide, 10 wide. I don't know. I've seen 10 wide here probably at some point, especially when we did the Ferraris. Anyway, Ford GT. Whack traction control on 1. And as we set off, once that red dot stops flashing, just whack it to 0 and off you go. Now, as I say, do not start without traction control. You will lose the slipstream and it's game over. Unfortunately for P12, it's game over already. So they've got just 5 minutes of toddling about here while we sit behind Found Shelty. Now, in parts of this, we're going to fast forward because there's not really much going on, to be honest, other than we're catching up to the pack. So I'll just explain potentially what you might want to do, what you might not want to do. So I go for the overtake here. I'm just trying to test here how effective slipstreaming is, how effective it is to be on your own, etc. Bumper drafting. And quite clearly here you can see that even though we got a bit of a bump from behind, nothing's really happening. Now the other thing you got to be careful of here is people sideswiping. I've talked about this before. Every time we race here at Special Stage Route X, I mean there, you know, they just came across me there. Not sure what's going on, but you just got to be careful. And again, they've just gone left there. They've just moved too far to the left. That can cause crashes. You don't want to crash here because you'll be at the back again. But even so, we continue round here. Now, I chose to go on the inside here just to survive, basically. Consta gave me a nice little bit of a bump there. I think it was Consta anyway. Around we go. We just get into the slipstream of the car ahead of Ray Alex there. Now, the goal here is to try and be in a prime position for the end of the straight. So I try again to go around the outside, but basically you just got to be in this straight line. So it gets quite boring quite quickly. And as I say, I was drinking a cup of tea at this point because I was just like, well, nothing's going to happen here, really. You know, as long as you're in that line, you'll survive. Now, I try and go around the outside again with Consta, but you can see nothing's really happening. You need multiple cars, double, treble, quadruple slipstream to really have an impact. And unfortunately, if you don't have that teamwork, as you see there, everybody goes flying by. So I chose to go on the outside this time just to test the speed. I was like, hopefully someone follows me around. Blue Racer sees this, gets a nice lovely bump from me, and then falls back into that line. So unfortunately, the left hung out to dry. And literally hung out to dry. So everyone's going to go flying past us because we can't move over because it's a busy lane there. And finally when we can, we're in P11 and it's the end of the race. So let's see what happens then as we head towards, like, you don't need a track guide for this, do you really? It's just get in the line and hope you're near the front. So as we head towards that line, you notice how we're going 3 wide, 4 wide there. Is it going to 5 wide, 5 wide potentially? Maybe 10 wide is not possible. I don't know how wide you can go. But yeah, we just come P11. Shelty though, shout out to Shelty, P3. Not too bad, but a pretty boring. I wish they chose a different car, to be honest. We did 4 GTs last time. But yeah, let's head to Croatia where we have a slightly more interesting race. I know, don't be like, Tidge, we always do Dragontrail Seaside. Well, we do, actually, as you saw in that other video we did quite a while ago. However, this, I feel, is the only race where you can have some really, really, really good racing. And you'll see why when we get to race C. So let's have a look at the race details first of all. We're racing 4 laps here at Dragontrail Seaside. It's a rolling start and we are on the racing medium tyres. Now we are in Group 3 cars and the top car at the time was the Supra, and I don't mean accidentally again, but I was in the top 10 stars for Europe at the time, so happy days. I did that in about 10 minutes flat. So yeah, we're going to start towards the front of the grid here, which does mean the racing action is a little bit impacted. However, I will give you a track guide and just talk about some of the weaknesses you will experience with this race, as well as the chicane of death, of course. Here we are then at the start of the grid. Supra, Ferrari, then Supra. Now, people did actually pick a variety of cars, to be fair. And because it's only 4 laps and Group 3, potentially you can race with other cars, but of course, Dragontrail Seaside, very prominent with fast cars. So the Supra, very well up there, as you already know from my speed test. If you want to know what the fastest cars are in Group 3, check out my video in the description. And yes, there's a whole video on which cars in Group 3 are the fastest with BOP. And you can pick the cars from that list, maybe pick the top 10 and have a go with each one of them. However, we set off here. I'm going to head towards turn 1 and not start a track guide straight off the bat here. Ferrari looks, doesn't go for it. Probably could have, to be honest, because I did brake a little bit early there. Now, one of the problems with this race, as you see a little bit there, is understeer. Now, the dirty air in the S's is bad. And the problem is, because of the dirty air, you do actually struggle to race. Now, in the lower splits, you may find it easier to race because more mistakes happen. I certainly found, as you see, we're on lap 3 already, that in this split, I couldn't race. Every time I caught up to the Spaniard in front of me, I suffered a huge amount of understeer. As you'll see here, I had to lift, and I've just understeered completely off here, and I'm just going to struggle and go all the way back down in terms of time. When I'm out the slipstream, I always catch back up, and then rinse and repeat, basically. So, yes, you can have some good racing here, okay? But you are reliant on mistakes or trying to find a weakness in the car ahead. So maybe you're in a different car. Sometimes you'll be able to race. Certainly a fast MR car may do very well, like the Ferrari. The problem with the Ferrari, though, is as you come through here, you're going to struggle with the chicane there. But we survive it. And, yeah, we carry on. We're still in the slipstream, of course, which is why I had to lift quite substantially there for the chicane. So I'm going to go into the track guide and just give you a little bit of a summary of what to do here. Heading towards turn 1 then. You're looking for the start of the curb there. Now, if you're in slipstream, you are going to have to brake earlier than expected. But look for the start of the curb. It's a really good marker. Make sure you don't go over it and brake. Now, you want a really nice left to give you a lovely line for the right-hander. And if you can clip your tyre in the curb there, like I did just, you get a good run out there. As you see, we gained a 10th on the Spaniard in front. Now, make sure you don't cut this too much because it will shut you off. And then you want to start braking as the grass starts here. Now, I'm braking a little bit early, mainly because I'm in the slipstream and I've carried much more speed than I normally do. But the start of the grass is where you're looking for there. Keep it in third gear. Nice little trick with the Supra. Keep it in third gear. It's got enough oomph that when you actually want to get the peak torque, you're just at it as you leave the corner. You don't want it too early, so leave it in third gear. For the S's, my usual marker on the left-hand side, just dab the brake as you get to that orange marker on the left, and then turn in, and then just try and balance the car with the throttle. You notice here, just letting the car roll, then I'm on the accelerator. I want to lift a little bit here. I'd rather lift on the right here than lift on the left here. You lose more time lifting for that left than you do on the right, so just keep that in mind when you do that. Heading down towards this hairpin then. I'm not actually using the curb this time. I'm using that cliff there. So as it starts to come down towards the ground, that's what I'm using for a brake marker. I know some of you will hate that, but the curb was too early. So I found that that was a good marker, to be honest with you. And I've dropped a second here. You can do it in third, as I did with the other corner. I dropped a second there just to reduce the speed that little bit more. We are in the dirty air again, so the chicane is quite risky here. So I'm not going to take any risks, just so I could finish P2 here. So a long lift there, and through I go. Just be careful there. If you are dabbing the brake at any point in the chicane of death, you're going to understeer into the barrier, so just be careful of that. The last corner then, start of the curb once again. Now you see I'm just starting on the brakes again. That's because I've been in the slipstream. When you're in slipstream, you have to brake so much earlier. Just keep that in mind. But I'm in the slipstream, so I'm just braking. And again, the last corner, third gear again. It's a nice car, this, for being able to do this. Just keeping it in a low, well, quite high gear for the corner, because by the time you want the peak power, you start to get it as you've left the corner already and you're in a straight line. So we provisionally got the fastest lap there, but somebody did overtake us. As I say, you can have some good racing here. However, you'll see the gaps on the right-hand side. They're quite varied in gaps. There's a bit of a close battle there and another close battle there, but most of them are pairs and just on your own sort of thing. So dirty air, the significant factor, but potentially you can have some good races here. Let's head to Germany, where, yes, we are at one of my most hated tracks, the Nurburgring 24-hour. Don't get me wrong, I love the GP circuit. I just think the 24-hour layout is pretty rubbish for racing. However, in this situation, it could be beneficial. So let's have a look at the race details first of all. We're racing 2 laps here at the 24-hour layout. It's a rolling start. We are on the racing medium and hard tyres, although only the hard are required. You do not need to pit stop here, so only choose the hard tyre, okay? Fuel use is ×7, which is nuts, and tyre wear is ×8. As you can see, we are in Group 4 machinery in the background. Now, I picked the Scirocco because there was lots of them in the top 10. And as we know, the FF cars are very good for fuel. You will need to fuel save quite substantially in this race, as well as tyre save a little bit in the FFs. However, fuel saving means tyre saving, and therefore they go hand in hand, so the Scirocco is quite good here. Let's jump to the race then. I'll talk you through the GP tutorial and guide, because I'm no good at the Nurburgring 24-hour layout anyway. So I'll talk you through the guide for the initial part of the circuit. Obviously, in the 24-hour layout as well, you're going to have a lot of action. The braking markers are all going to be all over the place anyway, irrespective, because sometimes you're fuel saving and sometimes you're not. Let's jump to the race then, as I say, and I'll talk you through what happened in that race. Here we are then at the start of the race. Jaguar and Jaguar. So the F-Type, I believe, from the conversations, is also quite good at this. Got a Tenza Viper, TT. I nearly picked the TT, but I'm in the Scirocco down in P17. Now, one thing you can do, if you've got a steering wheel at least, is whack your fuel map to 6, even when you're on the grid there, because it will put it to 6. Just saves that tiny little bit. Now, for some people, you will need every tiny little bit. Now, rather than use traction control here, I'm going to use the fuel map instead as my traction control, because it's a fuel race, and off we go. And I'm going to lose a lot of time initially. I'm actually already going to be on 97% fuel before I've even started the race myself, before I've even crossed that start-finish line. There we go. We've just crossed it now. So I'm going to whack my fuel map up, and we're going to go into this track guide of the GP layout, as I say, just to help you out here. Heading towards turn 1, that tree on the right-hand side, very useful to use. So honestly, I highly recommend using that tree, even when you're on the normal layout of, you know, the Nurburgring. It's just a useful tree to have, and obviously no one's going to take down the tree. So in we go. You see I'm on fuel map 3 here, so I'm already saving. A little bit of contact there between those two drivers as we continue out of that corner. Now, the next one is the marker we already use on all the guides for Nurburgring, and it's that point there. So as the GPD section, the circuit we don't have in the game, goes off, that's where we actually brake and start to turn in. Now, in most of these corners, even here, I'm going to be rolling the car, trying to save tyres as much as possible. Into the right-hander then, as the red and white curbing ends, that is when you're going to look to brake. As you can see, I've just started braking now and slowing the car down. So you can see that there, and then just turn in. Now, because of the run I had there, I'm going to actually try and overtake Adventure in towards the hairpin. Obviously, the FS very good at accelerating and have good top speed. So I'm looking towards the inside here. They have good brakes as well. And as I'm doing that, I'm looking for that sort of building there. The end of the building is what I normally use as a brake mark when I'm on the far left. However, I'm braking a little bit early here because I'm on the inside and taking the tighter line. However, we do get the car stopped. Happy days, and up into P16 for now. So one thing with this race, you are going to have to make decisions on when you can overtake and when you can't overtake, depending on your car. The Schumacher S here is nearly flat, just a slight lift, just to make sure you get round it. And one thing to remember, in fact, we'll talk about it in a second, going towards this corner, just as the green AstroTurf starts there, that's your maximum braking marker. I'm normally braking before that, where this tarmac here, basically where the GPD section actually finishes there. So use all the curb on the left. You can see the move done by the Ferrari up ahead on the Viper, and then into here, you're just bouncing the car through here. And then again, so I made the decision here, the FF should be faster than the Scirocco, so I should be able to get a good overrun and hopefully overtake. And again, I'll talk about some of the strategy to use in this race in just a second. So you can see we're actually ahead of the Viper at this point, but I noticed it didn't let off here. So as we come towards this chicane, look for that green, I don't know even what it is, structure. We'll call it structure on the right-hand side. But I noticed the Viper didn't lift off here, so I sort of assumed he was going to go for the move, so I did back out of that and just let them continue on. I'm not that fussed about racing at this moment in time. The last corner here, White Van Man returns. Use White Van Man there on the right-hand side, and then just make sure you're just ready to take on the Nurburgring, basically, on the North Loop, as it's actually called, rather than the Nordschleife, which is obviously the German name for it. So heading down here then, what I'm actually going to do is fast forward parts and just move forward in parts as well. So we move forward a little bit more here. You see the Viper's got ahead of the Ferrari here. And through Flugplatz, just lift. Now, I was using fuel map throughout the entirety of that section, fuel map 6 in fact, so I'm good enough for the move here. The Ferrari was really a little bit aggressive there, moving left and left again, so I was just like, oh, it's okay, I'll just be behind. No rush for me, I'll stick on fuel map 6. Now, one of the key strategies here is to actually use fuel map 6 when you're just stuck behind somebody. As I say, the Nurburgring 24-hour layout is not good for racing. It's good for time trialing, but because you can't overtake. So just use fuel map 6 wherever you can. You notice I'm on fuel map 6 again. Now, you want more fuel on the second lap because that's where you're going to make your serious overtakes. At the moment, you can see ahead lots of traffic. Lots of traffic means you can't really do much anyway. Even if I overtake this Ferrari, I'm still stuck in the traffic. So I might as well just save the fuel for now and just make the moves where I know I can make the moves. You see a Scirocco up ahead. It also went off there. Heading down into here then. Again, I'm just lightly braking. I'm pretty sure Adventure got hit from behind. But it does catch it and lets me go again as well. And at this point you think, oh no, I'm going to lose the slipstream. So I don't even go to fuel map 1. I'm like, oh, fuel map 3, just to make sure I keep the acceleration here. And then you notice they're still fighting up ahead. I had no idea why everyone was fighting so much, if I'm really honest. It was bizarre to me. Why people were fighting. I wasn't trying to fight too much in corners, just on straights if I could, but there was some really aggressive fighting going on, and you just lose time. You lose time for days. So we're on the straight here. At this point, obviously, FS do benefit a lot from the fast part, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go down the inside here. I don't need to save fuel at this moment in time. I've saved a lot throughout this race. Look at that, 75%, so we're about a quarter of the way through, I would say, so we've done bang on the money here. So we went up there. We didn't lose any time, really. And Afraid Racer here, the Indian driver. We don't see India very often. On the right-hand side. So I was like, are they going to come across? No. Okay, I'm going to go for this move here. So through I go. Now, I'm a bit overly cautious for this left-hander here because I was unsure where they were on the right. I really should have used the rear-view mirror, but I didn't. So Cyberman unfortunately hits me. That's clearly my fault. That's not his fault, really. I know it's the car behind's fault usually, but I just, I miscalculated. We advance a bit further on where I've used fuel map 6 once again. All I'm doing is fuel map 6. Now, the Viper up ahead, who've been stuck behind for quite a while, actually goes off here. So I'm like, okay, this is a time to potentially overtake because they've been off, they've got dirt on their tyres. So I went to fuel map 1. Unfortunately, just as they came across, we tapped them. So it's like, bit of a wasted opportunity there. But again, I'm not going to overly fight this. There's no point going overly aggressive in this race on a corner because you just lose time. You lose time for days. As you see, we've gained throughout this race as we advance a bit further on, and they're just going to lose it here a little bit there, just to go a little bit wide. Now, this is a mistake from my part. I really should have just stayed behind them, to be honest, but I didn't, and they knew they could overtake me on the straight here, so round we go. I'm in fuel map 1. I was hoping, potentially, I'd get into the Audi TT slipstream. Unfortunately, I don't, so at this point, I'm just a sitting duck on the straight, of course, and both Vipers are actually going to go past me here as we just fast forward on. There's one. And then I just let the Viper go at Cyberman as well. Now, coming down here, I will explain where to brake on the next lap for this corner. But Cyberman gets it all wrong here. And some people go in the pits. Some people going from hard to medium. It's a bit of a weird situation. And some people going from medium to hards. Because hards are the only ones required. As I say, do not pit in this race. You will come last, basically, if you pit in this race. So you need to go on the hard tyres. And as you see, we're on 55% fuel. We've got 5% over with the fuel saving that we've done. In towards turn 1, I was trying to look for a run on the Viper, but the Viper actually had good overspeed. Unfortunately, they outbraked themselves, so I think, okay, a nice lovely cut back here will do very nicely. I know we can get some good acceleration out in the Scirocco if we just line it up straight and hope the tyres don't burn too much. In terms of tyres, you can see them on the left-hand side there. They're hardly worn. They really are hardly worn. So in we go, and we've actually made that position. So up it's P9 now, so we're doing fairly well in this race, To say it's a track I really dislike, doing all right. So going through here, I noticed that the IDTT was struggling. I would think some people in the FF would struggle. So we get a really good run here. So I go towards the right-hand side, and then they start to move as I've already gone over there. So I was a bit like, oh. But they move back, and then, we get the position. I think that we actually lost time there because of that sort of situation. That could have been an accident as well if they could come over more. But they didn't, and there was no accident. So I'm not going to worry about it. We are racing at the end of the day. So I'm going to advance a bit further on here as we look to try and catch the Spaniard in another Audi TT here. But P8 at the moment, we can see P Steve. And no, we're not going to get P Steve. I'm blimmin' hope not anyway. As we see somebody spin there. Who's that? Rum in a BMW. So up to P... Oh, now we can see P Steve clear as day. So yes, we've made an overtake there through no fault of our own, of course. And we're looking to overtake the Audi TT next, which I can see is struggling. Now, as you can see, I've got 1 lap of fuel and I've already done the GP section of the circuit. So I've done all right with the fuel saving, to be honest with you. And I was mainly waiting for the huge straight at the end, because that's where I'm going to use all my fuel to try and overtake a few people. As we come through here, just a slight lift again at flood plats. That's all you need. And then we're going to try and look to overtake the Spaniard now. So we've got a good run here, which is why I've gone to fuel map 1. This is the best time to do it. Lose minimum amount of time. So I go towards the inside. They just come across there. I don't know what that was about, but I'd already made my intention very clear. Maybe they didn't see me. I don't know. But through we go. And up into P Steve for now. And we can see a Jaguar F-Type up ahead. So you can see our tyres. They're still okay. Our fuel Bob on really. And as you can see, TJC_69, I love the number, indicating to let me go there on the left hand side. It's like we're on a tourist farting day or whatever they call it. So I just whacked my hazards on there to say thank you. And as we get to the end, nothing much happens. You can see I've got a lot of fuel left, but in towards the braking zone here. So here's how I handle this last corner, just to help you out here. As that curb ends is when you want to start braking, because it's a straight line here. You can see it's a straight line. I'm going to slow this down as well. So slam on, and then I'm going to lift as I turn left here to get the best line, and then slam on again 100% to get, and then a nice little bit of trail braking as we slow the car down. But as that curb ends is when you really want to brake, and you want to make sure you don't get any oversteer. Now, luckily for us, our fuel is happy days here. Look at that. We could have actually used more fuel. We fuel saved that well on the first lap. So you will need fuel maps to make it to the end. You will need a short shift towards the end. You will need a bit of slipstream to make the end. But, you know, a little bit of strategy in terms of that fuel play and where and when to overtake. And I think you could do quite well here. It's not one of my favourite races, to be honest. But, you know, some people may like this kind of race. But that is going to be it for me now, folks. There's a video there of the fastest Group 3 car, if you want to check that out. The Ollie's stream is there for later on tonight, and my logo's there if you want to subscribe. Do give it a like, as always. It does help out the channel, and hopefully I will see you in another video or live stream very soon.